infrastructure programs of the administration. I've been listening attentively to the statements being answered by our distinguished colleague, the chairperson of the Senate Committee on Finance, na ang sentro ng ating pamahalaan ay to build more, yung paggamit at paggasta natin nakalaan sa mga infrastructure projects natin. And tayo po dito sa Senado, nag-hearing po tayo ilang beses, lalong-lalo na nung nagkaroon ng matinding pagbaha, hindi lamang sa Bulacan kundi sa ibang parte ng ating bansa. Mr. President, I have been saying this for quite some time na ang budget ng ating pamahalaan for flood control alone, kasama ang DPWH, MMDA, Climate Change Commission, DENR, etc., ay tumataginting na 1,444,000,000 a day. So, gusto nating mai-check at malaman kung saan ba ito napupunta. Noong pong nagkaroon ng pagdinig, ang committee ni Senator Bong Revilla, napag-alaman po natin mismo sa ating secretary ng Department of Public Works and Highways, and I will go to this later on. Merong 74 infrastructure flagship projects according to DPWH. Ito rin po yung nasa NEDA. 13 of them were tagged as water resources projects and have indications that they are used for flood control and mitigation. Pero tinitingnan ko po itong mga big ticket items, no, Mr. President, especially itong mga foreign assisted projects. Again, during our hearing dito sa Senado, it was highlighted that we need foreign assisted projects because they are the big ticket items that contribute to long-term flood mitigation. Yun po yung lumabas doon sa pagdinig. An example would be the Metro Manila Flood Control Project funded by the World Bank. Pero kung titingnan po natin itong mga foreign assisted projects budget ng DPWH, ang lumabas po dun sa pagdinig, napakaliit o mas maliit ito kumpara sa small ticket projects. Kaya ang lumabas nga po dun sa pagdinig, pachi-pachi yung mga proyekto. Pachi-pachi yung naging project. And Senator Amy Marcos would also attest to this because she was there during that hearing. Why don't we invest, Mr. President, more in big ticket flood control projects? Kasi yun po yung lumabas nitong pagdinig, no? Lumabas po na for the past 3 years, we spent over 500 billion pesos for the flood control program, but we only allocated 25 billion for the foreign assisted programs. Now in 2024, FAPs are in the unprogrammed, Mr. President. Itong 2024. So in the last 3 years, I'm looking at the data, we have only allocated 3.8 billion for the foreign assisted projects, which represents only 0.7% of the total flood management program of the DPWH. Kaya masakit to isipin, Mr. President, especially coming from a province like Bulacan, na taon-taon ho, binabanggit ho natin, ito yung flood control project, ito yung napupunta sa aming rehiyon, yun nga pong nakaraan doon sa Bicol region, mismong ating Senate President wanted to look into this because the past 2 years ay 60 billion plus yung naka-lodge doon sa flood control projects. Pero pag tinignan po natin at gaya nung nakaraang pagdinig sa DPWH, sinasabi po nila yung mga small items ang napagbigyan, hindi yung big items. Again, Mr. President, it only represents 0.7% of the total flood management program ng DPWH, yung foreign assisted itong FMPs, Mr. President, ng DPWH, Mr. President, doon sa foreign assisted project. So, may we know, Mr. President, why we are not investing more in big ticket flood control projects na makikita natin talaga yung pong prutas ng ating labor at investment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Actually, I agree. There should really be a national plan as to the all these waterways and general engineering projects. We just approved yesterday two major projects for the flooding control, and that's in Marikina. 57 billion itong sa Marikina, and Cavite 30 billion.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, in Cavite and Marikina, with yung Las Piñas daw, wala?
JICA funded.
Yung Cavite, Mr. President, how much? And sa Marikina, sorry.
Marikina 60 billion, 30 billion, and then in Cavite magkano? Cavite 20 billion. 20.
There's an existing
Okay.
project, but we are adding 27 billion to address the issue of resilient.
Okay, so there are existing projects in Cavite, but we're adding 27 billion more for flood mitigation. Hindi kaya magkagulo yung mga ibang
It's to improve the design.
to improve the design. Okay, so this is the JICA project. This is for Cavite. Now in Marikina, additional din yan.
25 billion additional.
Mr. President,
25 billion additional sa Marikina.
I'm willing to wait for the total number of projects that have been approved recently, plus the figures. I'm more than willing to wait for it, Mr. President. My only point, Mr. President, is that if you look at this figure, Mr. President, 0.7% lang ng ginagastos natin na 1.44 billion pesos a day ang napupunta doon sa foreign assisted project na kinukonsider natin na big item projects, Mr. President. Mr. President, let me go to another issue on multipurpose water infrastructure. As I mentioned a while ago, the DPWH has 74 infrastructure flagship projects according to the NEDA. Yun po yung ni-report sa atin.
Actually, Mr. President, just a correction, it's 186 flagship projects.
186. No, but these are water infrastructure.
Water
Yung sa
structures, okay,
74, opo.
74.
And 13 of this 13 lang yung sa water resources projects, if I'm not mistaken, and have indications that they are used for flood control and mitigation. If I'm correct, Mr. President, please correct me if I'm wrong. That's correct, right? 13 of these are tagged as water resources. Karamihan po sa mga ito, Mr. President, may connection sa flood mitigation o flood control. May we know, Mr. President, alin sa mga proyektong ito ang may iba pang gamit, kagaya po ng irigasyon, kuryente, industrial at iba pa, Mr. President, mula po dito sa 13 water resources projects?
Power.
Yeah.
Irrigation, power, industrial.
Actually, the one in Iloilo, always
The Halur.
Alur, yeah, the great province of Iloilo. Multi-purpose po yan, yung dam nila.
Nautusan po ako ng principal. Hingi daw lang po ako ng report at bigyan ko ng kopya ang bawat isa. So, if that
Okay.
is possible.
Of course,
Madam
of
Chair.
course. So yun nga, yung example nga doon, yung dam doon, for irrigation, for power, di ba? So, at saka water supply for households.
Sige po, para mas mapadali, hintayin na lang po namin, Mr. President. Ayan po yung ang gusto ho sana nating malaman, Mr. President, from this list na 13, ilan po dito yung mayroong component ng may iba pang gamit gaya po ng irigasyon, kuryente, industrial at iba pa mula po dito sa 13 na ito. And I will give a copy to our principal, Senator Villar.
Thank you.
Siguro yun na lang po yung ihintayin ko po, no? Yung ilan dito sa mga proyekto yung may iba pa pong gamit. One last thing, Mr. President, gusto kong itanong, Mr. President, kasi pinag-usapan po natin yung flood foreign assisted projects. Inisa-isa ko yung mga saro nitong mga nakaraang araw. Parang 800 pages po yun, Mr. President. At napag-alaman ko po, for example, ito po sa flood mitigation related FAPs na pinondohan under the unprogrammed funds. Gusto natin malaman ano yung details nitong mga foreign assisted projects that have been allotted additional funds under the latest Special Allotment Release Order or SARO for DPWH. Kasi if I may show you a slide, Mr. President, ito po yung narilisan ng unprogrammed funds, no, dito sa ating mga flood foreign assisted projects. So makita po natin dyan, for example, nung June 6, yung SARO BMBA 24004-246. Yan po, June 6 of 2024. Nakalagay po dyan, to cover the first and second quarter GOP counterpart requirements of the Panay-Guimaras Negros Island Bridges project. Yung SARO BMBA 240014804 as of September 17, 2024, 201 million. Kinover po niya yung loan proceeds requirement for the implementation of the Metro Manila Bridges Project, ADB loan po ito. At yung September 17, 2024, sa nagkakalagang 153.436 million, SARO number BMBA 24001-4802, ay kino-cover naman po nito yung third and fourth quarter na GOP counterpart requirements ng Panay Island Bridges Project. Ito pong dalawa na nasa itaas at nasa ibaba, 10 billion po at 11 billion. Pero dito po, wala hong nakalagay. Ang nakalagay lang po to cover the first and second quarter counterpart requirements of various foreign assisted projects. Saan po ito, Mr. President? At ano yung description to? Bakit wala po dito, Mr. President?
That's a very good question. Even I'm curious. Let me wait for the explanation of the DBM.
Sorry.
Kasi lumabas na dyan.
Nakuha niyo yung SARO number, di sinip niyo.
Can we just submit that also to the here?
Yeah, Mr. President, I don't mind na mai-submit, Mr. President, but may we just be enlightened whether or not these funds that were released under unprogrammed funds ay parte ng foreign assisted project na tumutukoy sa problema natin sa pagbaha o ito'y parte ng flood control project, Mr. President.
Mr. President, what I have initially here, for example, is the Davao Bypass Construction Package, JICA PH 273. Meron din ditong Philippines-Korea Project Preparation, Output of Roads and Bridges, Dalton Pass Alignment, JICA. So ito lahat yung...
But it's not flood control, Mr. President. I just wanted to focus on
may
the flood
floodway
control
bridges construction.
because, Mr. President, the premise of this question lies on the fact that the flood control programs, the big ticket items, were placed under unprogrammed. Yun yung basis nitong question na ito, Mr. President. That's why we are wanting na to see itong breakdown. But it's okay, Mr. President. I will wait for it as a lot of our colleagues are also interested in looking for this list. And I will no longer belabor the question, Mr. President. I will just wait for the submission, Mr. President, to find out yung tinatanong natin, yung details ng tinatanong po natin. And
Meron mga integrated disaster risk reduction adaptations na kasama may mga water projects, but
ma'am,
yan-
is it part of the 10 billion or the 11 billion?
actually it's part of a bigger pie. So I think that DBM
So it's
has to-
more than the
Yeah,
the,
no.
the figures that we are
I
showing.
think, I don't think we are directly asking your answering your question, to be honest. And I think this is something that DBM has to clarify because the total 11 billion and 10 billion, parang hindi ko nakikita dito exactly. So I don't know if they're lumped
That's
together.
the reason, Mr. President.
Oo.
That's the reason why I flash on screen the number of SARO, Mr. President.
Meron ditong 11,709. Yan ba yon? Hindi iba rin eh.
The-
So,
Anyway, Mr. President, we'll wait for the list, Mr. President. We're willing to wait, and again, the premise of this representation's question is based on the fact that big ticket items that were supposed to address the problem of flooding in the country were placed under unprogrammed, Mr. President. So I hope that we can do something about it kasi mahirap umuwi ng Bulacan tuwing umuulan at bumabaha. At tingin ko yung mga kababayan natin ayaw na po ng relief goods, Mr. President. Ang gusto nila talaga solusyon.
Sabi niyo yung exact
Kaya
ano yan.
salamat po, Mr. President. That would be my last question. And I'd like to thank our distinguished colleague, the chairperson of the Senate Committee on Finance, for patiently answering these representations questions. Maraming salamat, Ginoong Pangulo. Thank you.